And he's going to tell us more about the most important thing he's been doing all year, and then we're going to get to see a grand unveiling here in just a little bit. So may I introduce our speaker today, Hank Leonard.
Thank you, Connie. I've worked really hard to erase all my history from the internet. Nothing good could come of that. I did get a college degree. I did grow up in a very small town, and that's about it. Thank you this morning for all of you that are braving this weather to get out here. I'm honestly surprised that we have this many because of the taping that we do, and you can see this online. However, Betsy, I just wanted to let you know the microphone fell off my belt as I was sitting down here, and I can't get it on, so I'm having to use a handheld so we get the sound recorded, and otherwise you just kind of go with the flow. Mike, to your question, I have answers that if you want to ask that question later, we'll get to that. I've got the answer already, so lucky me. Okay, this morning I've been asked to talk about the endowment, and I'm going to be brief because at 10:30 there's going to be a meeting out in the common area for the unveiling of the recognition wall. It's beautiful. I was up here nearly all day on Thursday during the installation, and believe me, there was a lot of man hours that went into that because each individual piece, they're all individual pieces. That's not a big thing put together and you just screw it on the wall. So it's really a unique offering. I hope you like it. It's very meaningful, and we'll go get to that at 10:30. I've been asked to talk about the endowment this morning, and I've talked a lot about it over the years, but I want to, for those of you that may be new or may not have heard this before, I want to give a very brief introduction of what the endowment really is. The endowment is a lot of things, but the two things that are most important is the corpus, where the amount that was originally donated is never spent. Only the interest and the earnings off of that is spent. That stream of income supports the ministries of the church in addition to our normal operating budget. Now that's significant. I want everybody to understand. Any gifts to endowment are over and beyond your annual pledges because those two never mix. They don't date. We don't consider one when considering the other. So always remember that. Now let me give you a little bit of history because the history can be it's really kind of interesting how we got to where we are today. The endowment was first adopted in 1993. At that point in time, it was a very small amount of money, like about $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. And it stayed that way for 18 years. Until 2011, a major gift was received. That major gift was from a person in this church that had been here a long, long time, was significantly important in the life and the growth of this church, and he and his wife were considered dear, dear people. They made a substantial gift to the church, and as I said, the earnings were distributed every year, which were about $14,000 a year was distributed. It stayed that way until 2021, another 10 years. We're now 28 years into the life of the endowment. Beginning with the trust was amended and work really began hard in 2021. At the beginning balance of 2021 was plus or minus $350,000. That was from that major gift. In 2016, another major donor contributed. However, they set up their own endowment or their own foundation that's managed by Oklahoma Disciples Foundation, and that's there. So it's not part of our endowment, but Harvard Avenue Christian Church is the only beneficiary of that trust. So we get that income every year as well, and I'll talk about that in a second. So really it didn't affect the balances we had of $350,000. As of, and I'm paraphrasing here because I don't have December 31st numbers yet. I'll get those here in 8 days. But I'm going to tell you what I think they are because we're real close. Christian Church Foundation in Indianapolis is who houses and helps us manage our foundation here, our endowment. And the balances there are right at $950,000 today. There is another balance. One major donor contributed money to Tulsa Community Foundation, and with the idea that monies get transferred every year from there to Harvard Avenue. Of the monies that are coming in, half of that gets spent and half of it gets saved, so that total gift will be distributed inside of a 10-year period of time. My best guess, because I can't call them and it's none of my business, so I have to be cautious, but I think the gift right now has a balance at TCF of about $250,000 with us as the beneficiary over the next 2.5 years. And by the way, that gift is 2.5 years yet for that balance to come in. Then we've got another 5 years afterwards for it to be distributed. Then with the $265,000 that's over at Oklahoma Disciples Foundation, the total of all of this is $1,465,000. It's taken us 4 years from 1921 till today to increase it from $350,000 up to the $1,465,000, which is significant. It's been a real coup for our church, for the donors, for the people that are committed to seeing what this church can do and has done, and it's wonderful. Estimated income to include the Oklahoma Disciples Foundation money, as well as the money from TCF that has to get spent every year. The money that we spend every year right now is right at $90,000 for the benefit of this church. Now then, the trust is managed right now, currently managed and controlled by 3 trustees. Those trustees are Ryan Bouchon, which is the Richert's son-in-law. The man is brilliant. He's got a lot of history. He's currently with Bank of Oklahoma Wealth Management, as senior vice president there. He knows what he's doing, and he's very smart. Another smart one is Jason Dent, former moderator of the church, and he's currently with New York Life Insurance financial services provider. And then me. And that's it. I've spent with my sketchy history and 52 years of experience, so that's it. The trustees meet quarterly, and on the 3 trustees come up here. We all meet together. We have David, we have Kevin, we have John Morrow, who is the head of finance for the church, and then we also include the moderator. For the last couple of years, it's been Diana Barine, and this year it will move over to Kyle Simmons. We have our January meeting already scheduled, and at that point in time, we'll review year-end numbers and look at where we are. Now I'm going to read you something from the trust document itself, because I didn't want to paraphrase this. I want to be strictly straightforward. The distribution opportunities for that $90,000 per adopted bylaws, but adopted and approved by the congregation. 1, can be used for construction, modification, and enhancement of the church building and premises. Secondly, can provide furnishings and equipment of such modifications if such improvements are utilized for the loving outreach of God in the world. Third, we will support current or future ministries of HACC that grow and improve our outreach to our community and the world. Those are the 3 options that we have to spend the money. Mark?
So it's not about maintenance. That money's not spent on maintenance ever.
No.
If we need to do air conditioning systems.
No. We never provide maintenance monies for the church. Okay. Now, what does that mean, and where have we funded some money so far? Because I think that's important to realize, recognize, and appreciate. You may have heard a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, the church had a vision team, and that vision team worked hard for a couple of years, meetings and analyzing, and we had external advisors come in and review with us. And that's when we had what we called a family ministry consultation. And that's when we decided through that vision team that we needed to expand our ministries into more of a family-oriented situation versus individuals. And we needed to make certain that we were attracting younger couples and younger families into the church to support all of us for the next several years. Just like all of us supported this church in our younger years. So now it's time to move on. So a family ministry consultation was had in which we did a health assessment of the church. The foundation supported that and funded that, and we had, as I said, external advisors come in, a company, I can't remember where they're from, but there were several that came in and conducted different kind of meetings. After that, there was developed a 5-year plan on discipleship pathway development. Now, we haven't heard much about that because really it was designed to give our leadership and our staff clarity about our mission and created a full involvement of purpose. Now what that means is that we started small groups. We didn't have small groups before this happened, but now I can't remember how many we have, 16 or 17, 18. There's over 220 people that are involved in those small groups every month, which is significant. We also looked at a family ministry, and we saw that we were hurting in our youth and our children's area. We were not providing adequate effort or adequate funding. So we set about doing something about that and making a commitment to the church. And the endowment funded that and made a commitment for about 3 years. Of which 2 have passed, and one is we're in the 3rd year. That family ministry, that commitment was really important in the hiring of Denise, of Kayla, and Lindsay. Denise being the family minister, Kayla being the youth pastor or youth minister, and Lindsay being the children's. Those programs have significantly improved, because it also included the writing and the adoption of new curriculum, new focus, and new ideas of where we were going to take that program, and we get the professionals involved to help do that. We also, as a result of that, enhanced the youth facility upstairs. This morning, there's going to be an open house upstairs. It won't last very long because between services and everything else, but you'll be able to go up there and take a look at the new facility. It's been completely remodeled. Electronic equipment is not all in yet, but will be. I took a tour of it this past week, and I was really impressed. I had a chance to talk with Kayla, and she said that the kids didn't have really any place significant to meet in the first semester because we were under construction. We're now not in construction anymore, and she is excited. She thinks right now, or she knows right now, that we are ministering to 35 to 45 youth, and she's expecting that to at least double in the next semester or so. While I was in her office, there were another couple of people that came in and talked and listed. I counted 5 youth that they said, oh, she goes to Metro, or he goes to Bishop Kelly or whatnot, but they're looking for a place to go, and their friends are here, and so that's how it all happens, and that's how we're going to grow that. So that's kind of how we've done on family. We're getting many brand new younger families now. Even our trustees, Ryan and Jason, are both in that younger generation, which I'm excited about because they are already well suited to take over the endowment and keep it running for years to come with a good focus. Now, new programs have been developed for us, or we're looking at, and what we've done is distributions are vitally important, but they're also one of the tougher things as far as a job that we have to do. The reasons why, back to Mark's point, we do not want to get involved in something the church itself should be doing. We want to do something outside of that. So therefore, we don't pay utilities, we don't do maintenance, we don't do painting, we don't do anything like that. But what we do is we try and affect people's lives the way God would want them affected in ways in which they're not being currently done. So, for instance, and we went to the ministry leadership team and said, as well as staff, and we said, we need ideas from you. You're the ones that are involved in everyday life and all the people. What do we need? What is there out there that we could do that could provide help in God's work in this community or in this to help grow this church? They came back with a couple of things, 2 or 3 things that I think are significant. One is they have suggested maybe a senior care ministries because we're getting more and more senior people in our congregation, unfortunately. But some ideas they had was to improve the hearing assistance equipment in the sanctuary. It's a little sketchy right now, so that could be improved. The Next Man Up, if you've heard of that program, you know that there's several men that work on that when the elderly or when a widow or when anybody needs help at their house, whether it be fixing a roof or fixing a window or whatever it may be, just repairs, they call Next Man Up and they go out there and do it. Well, Next Man Up needs some supplies. So they've suggested that maybe for our senior program we could buy some supplies for them. We've talked about transportation uses of getting not only the elderly to and from church with church events, but also maybe the youth, that when they take a travel someplace, they go rent a van. Many of you saw what they did at Christmas time or whatnot, and they went to Target and they bought, I think it was, I want to say $5,000 worth of toys or things that they could give away. I have no idea which school district did this, but they gave them a school bus that came out here to church, loaded all those kids up, went to Target, loaded all the toys back in the school bus, and actually a licensed school bus driver transported them. I applaud the school district that allowed that to happen. I don't know which one it was, but that's something to do. Also, in the seniors program, we're looking at resources for those facing dementia or Alzheimer's. That's an event that no one knows what to do. I mean, sometimes we need to help families. Maybe we had a ministry where we could help families or help that person or whatnot in that process. So those are some ideas. Now, the problem with that is we don't have a staff person to be able to take care of this. So do we add to staff? If so, are we going to pay for that staff or is the church going to pay for that staff? And that's the questions we're fighting with today. So that's still on the table, but it's still under advisement and under development. One thing that we have approved to fund are retreats for a men's retreat and a women's retreat that would be held off campus. That would include a overnight, lodging and food, and there would be a guest speaker at both events that would be impressive. But with that, we wanted to look at that as promoting intergenerational relationships. It'd be really nice, we talk about all these young families, but I don't know any of them, and they don't know me. Well, I don't want what I've done to go to waste, so I want someone to know what I've done so they can continue to do it. Well, we got to talk about that. We just have to have conversations with younger families, and I think that would be significant, and a younger family would want to know about us as well, and we would want to know about them. Next thing we've discussed is scholarships, and scholarships would be financial aid either to an existing staff person to develop a new program or a new staff person to do a specific program like the senior ministry or whatnot. So we've got the sufficient funds that we could provide some education costs on that and be progressive for our church and progressive for its people. Now, I'm going to shift gears. Do I have any questions about so far? Anybody? Connie?
Well, the idea that The idea that your funds are going with your creativity to create new programs also creates a new staff. You mentioned that on that seniors. Then the staff that's created are many times left back in the budget of the ongoing. So I'm really glad to hear that you're contemplating what is the long-term outcome of this creative idea. I think the idea of building it program-wise is fantastic, but I also think we have to keep it into something we can all continue to keep sustainable on our end as operations.
Yeah, Connie, that's a great point. Thank you. It is important that if we do something like that or would hire a new staff person, this is not a permanent drain on endowment. This would be an investment in creating a program that the church would take over for the rest of time. And through our growth and through our monetary success, the church could do that, and that would be our plan. Any other questions? All right, let me move quickly so we can get out of here. Today after class, you're going to hear some talk about what's called legacy builders, and that's what the recognition wall is called, legacy builders. And that is a recognition of individuals who have made a monetary gift to the endowment, or they've included the church in their estate plan. We'll talk about that in a minute. All funds are permanent funds. In other words, they can never be spent unless designated differently by the donor. So there's no restrictions that it must be held forever. If you've got a specific thing you want done and we can come to an agreement on that, we'll absolutely accept that. Again, we're not in competition for annual pledges of members. That is totally forever separate. Ways to give. Well, currently, there's several ways you can, and you can be a little bit creative if you'd like, but the simplest way is just write a check. That's always good. Nothing wrong with checks. So that's one way that you could do it, is just outright cash. The other is a gift of property or appreciated stocks, bonds. There's some tax planning that can be involved in that. Versus you having to accept capital gains tax liability. You can put it to the church at the market value, and the church sells it and has no capital gain tax on it. So the IRS is the only loser in that deal. There have been events. We've had donors who have contributed IRAs, qualified charitable distribution, which are tax-free. You can, as of the end of 24. You could give up to $105,000 for IRS approval methods. I don't know what it is in 25. So that'll change, I'm sure, but there should be some limit on that. Those are kind of some current gifts. By the way, I've said this many times, and some of you in here, I want you to hear this. If you want to give us 300 acres of bottom land down around Tahlequah, that's just fine. We'll take that. If you want to give us a dilapidated, old, capped oil well, I don't know that we're going to take that. So there are restrictions. When people want to give something, we'll make the decision whether we can accept that or not. So I just want that clear. Also, there's some deferred gifts that you can make through your will or through your estate plan. Your will, your trust, whatnot. Life insurance proceeds. You can name the church, as we've got one future donor that has already named the church primary beneficiary of that life insurance policy. Retirement plan assets. Again, retirement plans are pre-tax, so you've got to figure out what the tax is. You can give it to the church tax-free. Gift annuities, that's kind of a specialized deal. If you have an annuity that you want income for the rest of your life, but the church gets whatever is left over at your death, that's another thing. Or a donation from an established charity or charitable trust or organization, such as the gift that was made to Tulsa Community Foundation, and the beneficiary is the church. Now, those are ways that can give. There are many others, more technical and deeper, and I don't want to go into those. It's just too complicated. I'm no lawyer. I didn't go to law school. I did go to college, but I didn't go to law school. I wish I had have, but I didn't. Did real well to get out of college. So I don't want to practice law, and I'm not going to get into details because I would have some of you lawyers out here call my hand on that, which you rightfully should. So I'm not going to say anything about that. I've got about 3 minutes, and Mike, to your question, can I answer it now? Or do you want to ask it now?
No, go ahead.
It doesn't work, Bill. It went on the blink. I don't know what happened. Sorry. Okay. The endowment fund invests our money just like you do yours. And so we want to make certain that we are properly diversified. We don't want to be concentrated in stocks or in bonds or in anything else. So we have an allocation of investments that includes about 60% stocks and 30% bonds and 10% kind of everything else, alternative investments. We don't like to hold a lot of cash, although it's paying a lot the last couple of years. It's not really what we want to do. We want to look for higher returns. There are 5 different funds at Christian Church Foundation that we choose how much we allocate per fund. Each of those funds has its own allocation of stocks, bonds, alternative investments, and those sorts of things. The Common Balance Fund, we have about 40% of our money in the Common Balance Fund. Year to date, and that's through the end of November. I don't have 12/31 numbers, but year to date through November was 13.6%. The 1-year number on that was 18.6%. So 40% of our numbers did 18.5% for the last year. Another one, the Beasley Fund, the Campbell, and the Bostic funds are all 20%. And that, let's see, the Beasley did a 15% last 12 months, Campbell 13.5, and Bostic 16, a little over 16. So if you'd average those out, I say for the last 12 months, we're in the 11-12% range, in my opinion. So we've done well. The markets have been kind to us. We want to be cautious in how we do things. We want to be vigilant, and we realize that these are long-term dollars. We're willing to accept some volatility in return for return, but we don't want to go crazy and throw everything into alternative investments or everything into stocks, because that's just not smart. And thankfully, the 3 trustees have had some experience with all of that and have seen those markets move. So we try and stay on top of that. Any other questions that you have? Bob?
An option within the mechanism for giving to direct the funds. If somebody says, I want to direct a specific scholarship, is there an option?
There would be, Bob, but it kind of depends on the amount. For instance, years and years and years have gone by in which the church would accept gifts at a funeral or in honor of someone, and they would be $100 gifts, or they would be $500 gifts, and it would go into you can't imagine the number of fund names this church had in the past 10 years. Those have now been kind of condensed down to a more usable thing. But we've had people come in and say, I would like to give to the youth program, or I'd like to give to the music program. If it's restricted like that, and depending on the amount, if it's $10,000 or less, it's probably going to go into a restricted fund on the church's books, not ours. If you give $100,000 and want $10,000 a year to go to the music program, it'll probably come to us. And we would honor that. But we just don't have the mechanism to take the smaller gifts and pay those out over a smaller period of time. We don't have the staff, or it's not designed to do that. Answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you all very much. And by the way, I will tell you that I am willing, and have in the past, I'm willing to meet with you or your family. One particular person, I met with lawyers, I met with CPAs, I met with trust officers, and it just nearly killed me. Again, I can talk with those people, but if I can meet with you or your family to answer questions, I am more than happy to do that. We'll meet at your home. We'll meet at the church. We'll meet anywhere you want to for coffee. I don't care. The other two guys have to work, so I try not to bother them, and I'm the guy that you'll get most of the time. But if you want to talk with any of them, let us know. We'll make that happen, okay? I'm going to excuse us now to go outside. Bill, you have anything else? Okay, thank you.